Good evening, Facebook family. Welcome to another episode of Marriage Mondays with Nick and Trina Brinson. And we're here to just enlighten you on some ideas and topics that will help you continue to develop your marriages and relationships to possibly be the best that it can possibly be, and just allow you to live in the ultimate place called peace. Got anything you want to say to our Facebook family? So we're gonna continue as people come in live, and welcome folk in as they come. We come in a little bit later than we normally do, about 3 minutes late.
It's 7:02. We good.
But 7 o'clock is our standard time we like to come in. So we just want to thank y'all for showing up with us tonight. And so who we got on tonight? I can't see him.
Francine, I see her face on there. Francine and Charles Brown.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Oh, Sister Josephine Green has joined us as well. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate y'all for being with us tonight on this rainy evening. I don't know where you are, but we have plenty of rain here where we are in Evans, Georgia.
Yep.
So hopefully it'll be cooperative and won't give us any trouble with the weather.
Right.
So Miss Francine says, good evening, everyone. So we're trying to give just a few more minutes for people to come in before we really start covering our topic for tonight. So we hope everyone's had a good day, good weekend, coming off the weekend. It's always a good time to make sure to get some family time in on the weekend. Take advantage of that. One thing we've learned in the course of COVID is that we don't always know, what lies ahead. So it's important for us to be cognizant of that and make sure we're spending time with those we love and making sure we let those we love know that we love them.
Absolutely. And I just would like to wish our bishop and our first lady a happy 40th anniversary. Can't we just give them a hand for that?
40 years.
40 years.
That's a lot of work, a lot of commitment.
Wee. And
the fact that they celebrated their 40th anniversary this past Saturday. So we hope that that day was special for them. We did our part to just make sure they know how much we appreciate their 40 years of marriage, and the fact that they have used that time to sort of take notes along the way and just be so open and transparent and sharing their experiences with others, and turning sort of their pain and their experience and their successes and just their kind of ups and downs, using that to strengthen the rest of us, to share that, a lot of people are very private about their experience, and it looks from the outside that they just have things figured out. But when you peel back the covers, there's always a story. There's always a story behind it all. And so when people are willing to share their journey with you, I think that's something to be appreciative of, because you can certainly learn a lot from other people and the things that they go through. I know for us, it was helpful for me just to hear from Bishop and Lady D the things that they had been through that were similar to obstacles that we were facing in that moment, and for them to just reassure us that what we were going through was not exclusive to us. That lots of couples go through the kinds of changes and challenges that we were going through, and so it was very comforting to hear that from them and their transparency with that. There were times when they would say, "Ooh, y'all sound just like us," and then for them to share the strategies and to give us encouragement, from what they went through, that was very valuable to us as a couple, to hear from both of them together and sometimes separately as well. So we just want to show some love to them, and you want to go ahead and get started, because thankfully it's recorded and people can always refer back.
Always. So tonight we're going to talk about negotiating in your marriage and how important that is to reach that level of peace and understanding that the two of you have to come to understand each other a lot better. And I'm sure there was a lot of negotiation and understanding as the bishop and the first lady were developing in their 40 years of marriage. And, me and my wife were reflecting tonight about how we've been through a lot of good negotiating to come to decisions about things that we may be actually opposite about or in conflict about. But when we went through the art of negotiating, which is conflict resolution in itself, we learned to come to an agreement that satisfied both parties. So when we're talking about negotiating, when you think about the word negotiation, it is a business term. And sometimes you can look at your marriage as a business and the fact that you're doing something to build your brand, to build your life together, to make it where everybody is on the same page. You're coming up with mission statements and visions, and you're building yourself as a group of people together that should last as long as you're on this side of earth. On this side of heaven. But when you're negotiating, sometimes those things can get intense. And then you want to come to an agreement when you're building your brand and negotiating. So when you're negotiating, how does that look? When you're negotiating with me, boo, how does that look? Oh,
You want me to answer that?
yeah.
Just off the top of my head?
Out top.
Well, negotiation between the two of us, it looks like taking turns speaking, talking, and listening. And so it looks like you saying what your perspective is, me saying what my perspective is, and listening to that other person's perspective. I think things can go left when you respond too quickly. If you have that knee-jerk reaction of rebutting what your partner is saying, it's the opposite of openness, and you want to be open to what your spouse is saying and to give that respect for your spouse to be able to say what they want to say without you interrupting.
Right.
And so that, to me, that's what negotiating looks like, is getting everything out on the table, and then the two of us genuinely considering each other's perspectives and coming up with a third option, or the two of us agreeing on one of the options that was put before us. At least that's what it has always looked like for us once we were skilled.
Right. When we became skilled at it. And we're still learning how to do it too now. We don't ever want y'all to think that we've made it. Because we're still learning and developing as a couple and as people on a daily basis. So we haven't made it. We just want to take y'all through as we've learned some things that have helped push our marriage forward and our togetherness forward that we bring to you all.
Because we do have 21
marriage
years of
marriage
experience.
Years.
We have 21 years of experience as a married couple. And we've learned a lot during that time.
Right.
I mean, we've made a lot of mistakes, but we've had a lot of successes as well. And so that's all we're doing is sharing with you. So we, same thing Bishop Bush and Lady D have done with us, which is to share and to teach. And so that's what we're doing. So I don't want to discredit it like we don't know what we're doing. We got some wear and tear on our marriage.
Yes, we do. Oh, hello, Mommy. How you doing?
Yep.
That's my mother-in-law.
Faithful supporter.
Yes. So one thing in the negotiating that in the research that we were doing, it says always keep your emotions under control. Yeah. Because it's hard to hear somebody, excuse me, when you're emotional and you just want it your way. And it's not one of those things. Your marriage is not Burger King, so you can't always have it your way. It's our way, the way we do things. And one thing that a lot of mistakes that couple make while they're trying to negotiate is you want to cave too quickly and give in just for the sake of giving in. You don't want to give in for the sake of giving in because you want the conversation to be developed to the point where the best decision is made.
You know what happens, I think, with caving in is that, I can't say it's women because it can be either side.
Right.
But a lot of times people tell themselves that they're caving in to keep the peace.
No.
That doesn't bring about peace. It might bring about quiet, but it doesn't bring peace. If you're caving in and agreeing to something that you don't genuinely agree with, or something that you haven't even voiced your concern, you shortchange not just yourself but also your partner.
Right.
Because very often that third decision or that third option that the two of you might come up with together can be the best option. It can be better than the option that I brought to the table. It can be better than the option he brought to the table. And so when the two of us get together and come up with a compromise, or even just a third alternative, it might not even truly be a compromise. It may be that we're able to actually get what we both want.
Right.
Because most of the time we have the same agenda. It's
Right.
just about working out the details of it. But when you cave in and just give in to your spouse's preference, and you don't even get to air your concerns, or your concerns are not even truly considered, you shortchange the both of you. And that it doesn't bring about peace. It brings about silent resentment.
Right.
So when you're agreeing to something that you're not truly resolved to agree to, you become dishonest with yourself as well as dishonest with your spouse, and you give place to the devil because you have you've been dishonest with each other, and you're resentful about not being heard, or resentful about whatever the decision was made that didn't fully consider your option.
Right.
And so what we want to do is let you know the power of negotiating. You have to put both points of view out on the table. A marriage is not about one person.
Never is.
It shouldn't. A healthy marriage is never just about one person.
And that negotiation style is called pushing too hard, overtaking, wiping your feet on the rug, where you want to get your point across, and it really don't matter what the other person think, because you think you know the best decision for the family. The only time you can make a unilateral decision is when the other partner says, you make the decision for the family. Since you know about that, we're going to go with your decision because you have some type of experience with it, or you just might know.
And I
But
trust you.
Yeah, and I trust you to make the right decision for the family, not for myself. That's when you can make that unilateral decision. Anytime else, both people's perspectives should come into play and be worked out.
Absolutely.
So, you got anything to say about that unilateral decision? And one other mistake that you make, and we're gonna talk about how to do this tonight, is to come prepared to the negotiation. Don't just come, from I'm gonna say out the streets and just start talking about a situation that y'all have tabled. Now you're coming to the table to talk about it and hopefully get some resolution. Don't come cold to the table. Come with a point, come with a plan, and be prepared to talk about what needs to happen. You got anything you want to say about that one?
I don't know where you going with this.
Yeah,
We skipped around
right
some. Okay. All right. Yeah. So preparation, I think, is extremely important, because it's so easy to get lost in the conversation, especially if you have two very drastic points of view. You can get so caught up in the conversation, which hopefully you'll be able to easily take turns talking. But sometimes you can forget what the point is, what it is that you wanted to be addressed. And so it's wise for you to come with your interests and the points that you want to make written. Don't have your mind made up that what you write down is what it's going to be, but have your mind made up that these are my concerns. This is what I want to talk about. And so when you have it written, it just helps to keep you focused and on track, so that you don't walk away from that conversation and not feel that your concerns were at least put out to be heard. Because you can get caught up in the conversation and just get off track and get off on a tangent, So that's a bit of advice that I would have, is to be prepared, come to the table, be prayed up, take some time to think about what it is that you want to talk about, so that you can communicate clearly.
Right. So with that said, what does it require you to be a good negotiator? How do you be a good negotiator in your marriage? What are some things that you can do to say, okay, I'm gonna negotiate and make sure that everything that I want to get out of this, or everything we want to resolve or happen in this, it actually happens. So there are some things, and actually my wife has actually mentioned a few of them, is you got to be a good listener.
Yeah.
And for me, I used to listen to key points and then try to respond to them, but never really getting the whole idea of what she was saying. So, I've developed into being a good listener to make sure I listen to the whole thing. And your face look a certain way right there.
Well, I think it's an ongoing goal.
Right.
But I think what you said is important, that you do want to listen intently. It's very what's the right word? It's almost dismissive when you're only listening to bits and pieces of what's being said, and you're not really listening to understand. We talked about that a few lessons back when we were talking about, the art, how to communicate, effective ways to communicate. You want to listen with the intention of understanding your spouse's intentions, not just to the words they're saying, but you really want to hear and understand what they came to communicate. And that's something totally different from you just listening and repeating back what they said. But listen to with the intention to understand their perspective. And when a person has been heard, it makes them more likely to really want to listen and hear what you have to say as well. So I think it's sort of like sowing and reaping. If you want your spouse to listen carefully and intently to what you say, then you need to sow that seed as well and listen intently and seek understanding in your spouse's perspective, and not just assume that you already know what that person's going to say, or you assume you know how they feel. To me, that always comes off as like arrogance. You don't tell me. I say this all the time. Don't tell me how I feel. Listen and let me tell you how I feel, because you might be wrong. And if you're listening to me and you've already got your mind made up about how you think my perspective is, you're going to miss what I'm trying to say. You might be right, but you might be wrong.
And just leading through what she just explained is you got to learn to be open to different ideas, open-minded, open for new ideas to come in, to add to the knowledge and wisdom that you have. She or he may bring some new knowledge and wisdom that you haven't learned yet. Right. So you got to be open and want to learn, and you got to be open to coming to a resolution that both of y'all can agree with.
It's a posture. I think openness is a posture of your heart, and it's a posture that you could, especially your spouse, being that that's one of the closest people to you. They can tell if your spirit is open, or if you're just tolerating and putting up with what they have to say. If you're not truly listening to hear a different perspective, they can tell. And so it's important for you to give your spouse that courtesy and that respect, to have an open posture for listening. Like, I don't even like if we're having a conversation and he talking to me like this. To me, that's just like you got everything closed up. Your body language is saying that you're not open to what we're saying. And so what do you think about that? Since you always ask me what I think, what do you think?
Well, I think there's some truth to that, but sometimes that's just my posture. That's my coaching stand. That's
but you
my,
see that
my
listening. Right there?
That's my listening stance, y'all. That's my concentration stance, because I want to hear what you got to say and listen intently so I can respond the appropriate way.
It is difficult to speak to someone who has a frown on their face and their arms folded. It's difficult to have an open, caring conversation with a person in that posture. I know that from experience.
But it's my negotiation look.
It's not effective.
Not for her.
And so
this is not effective for her. I'm showing y'all this is what happened.
And we have learned.
Yeah, we've learned to relax.
What's better?
I do this and
still frowning.
Well, I got a natural scowl.
And what do I always say?
Could you put a smile on your face?
Yeah.
Could you look pleasant at me?
Just look like you want to hear what I have to say.
But see, if I do this, I look silly. You're stupid.
You don't have to smile. I just don't
But
have to frown. We work on it.
Yeah, we
work
do,
in
y'all.
progress.
We it's a work in progress.
Sheena agreed with me. It's right there.
That's fine.
Agreed.
Sheena's
right.
I mean, I'm looking at myself, and I'm like, yeah, I want to,
It
that's
looks a little rough, don't it?
Yeah, I'm trying to see myself, try to make it where you can talk to me without that scowl on my face.
You working on it.
I am.
But
I'm becoming better.
You kind of go down though if I touch you.
I mellow.
Relax.
I mellow a little bit.
So sometimes that has to be
that helps. Touching each other while you're negotiating. If it's intense. But if it's not intense, you're just talking about something, just trying to come to an agreement. It's a little different.
And the reason it's so good to have things written down before you come, because this is exactly what happens to us. We start arguing about posture. Or I'm like, I don't want to talk to you if your posture says that you're not open. And we get bogged down in that sometimes.
And then I try to convince her that my posture isn't what, the problem here.
Exactly.
So
then that becomes a problem.
The problem.
Yep. So that's just real life for us.
It is.
So he has had to learn that I see y'all laughing at us, but that's just the reality of what happens at this address. So we've had to, that's something we have had to be intentional about.
Right. It's the truth.
And I have to be more open. I have a tendency to really think that I have good ideas. And I do. But sometimes his ideas are good too. And so we almost always come up with some really good solutions to whatever we're facing when we both truly put our ideas out and really listen to what the other person is saying. And usually if we'll start talking about whatever the issue is, and we come up with a better solution than what I could have thought of by myself.
Right.
That happens regularly now. At this point in life, this 20-something years in, 21 years, almost 22 years next month. From a month from now, we'll be at 22 years. And that usually is the way it happens. It's that when we sit down and talk about it.
Right.
And we're focused on that. Another obstacle, to negotiation is this.
Stab that thing.
While I'm talking to you and you doing this number right here. And so we both have learned that it's best just to, put the phone down and let's focus on what we're talking about so we can come up with a solution. Open yourself up, and that's something I have to be very careful with, is to be open to hear a different perspective so we can come up with a better solution. And this third point under what we're talking about, skills, is curiosity.
Be interested in what the other person is actually saying. Stay interested in what they're saying. Be curious. Ask questions.
Ask questions about their perspective. If you don't get what they're saying the first time, because when I be quick, I be like, that don't make no sense. And want to move on. But that's very dismissive and disrespectful. And so what I have learned to have to say is, okay, so tell me some more about that. Help me understand.
And she'll say, that don't make no sense. My first response is like, nope.
Yes. Like, you didn't even let me say what I was saying, and you already saying, hear me out.
Yeah, hear the whole situation
Don't say no, because if you listen to what I'm saying and think about it, you might just find that it can be added to what you're thinking. And that's usually what happens, or we're able to think even further than either of us thought about the issue separately.
Right.
What's an example of something we've had to negotiate on?
The thing that we've had to negotiate on is sending our kids to private schools.
Yeah.
That was a discussion.
It was an ongoing conversation.
And we actually started it when Camille was...
Before we had kids, really?
Before, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I'm not paying money for my kids to go to a private school when public education is free. And then we went through discussion after discussion. I was nope. But then as we continued to talk, what did we come up with?
Well, we, especially once Camille got here, our first child got here, and she was just very cognizant or she had a spiritual awareness at a very young age. And my thought behind private school was always Christian school. It wasn't just private school. I wanted Christian school. I wanted school supporting what we were doing at home. And so when she came, and it was pretty obvious that she had interests, she was spiritually aware more so than the average kid. And I think for him, the more we talked about it and the more we just kind of saw the reality of who she is, it just really made it a priority for both of us. Both of us became concerned that we wanted Christian education for our kids. And so that's how we ended up coming to that point. And as we starting out, of course, when she was younger, it was a lot. It wasn't really that difficult to afford. But then when we started moving towards grades, like kindergarten and first grade, and putting her in a full-fledged school, not just a 2 or 3 day a week deal, but 5 days a week, okay, the price got real.
Got real quick.
Yeah, because I was working part-time. And so the issue then became, okay, so how do we afford this? And so that was something that we had to talk about and negotiate terms, in reference to who's available to be with the kids, how do we get the extra income. And so we were able to really, over the years, we've been adjusting with it as to how many days a week that I would work, working out childcare, working out paying for school, working on, how much coaching he would do or not do. So those are things we've had to negotiate over time, and we've had some varying opinions on it, but we were always able to come to a consensus, not necessarily in one sitting. Sometimes it's been an ongoing conversation.
And see, that's the thing with negotiation. Negotiation isn't a one-time event. Negotiating is something it's a process. It happens often in your marriage relationship. You do it on a daily basis in your job or wherever. But in your marriage, it has to come to a place of peace, or, some of the research we read, a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Where it's beneficial to the family, not just the one person. So we've had our ups and downs in negotiation. Sometimes we had to table it and come back to it. And,
right.
Because the conversation gets so intense, and, after a while, you're not listening to each other. But then you go and like we do, pray. And, ask God for some understanding. Ask me to help me understand where she's coming from with this. And, so that was my process of learning how to negotiate.
Yeah, and I like Sheena said that she's working on trying not to say, that doesn't make sense too quickly. And that's a very important thing to be aware of. Because what happens is if you're too quick to shut your spouse down every time they, have an idea that's different from yours, you will end up missing out from their perspective. Because if it doesn't make sense to you, but it made sense to them to say it, then you have to be open to hearing it out and exploring that thought, because sometimes the best decision is made by considering both your perspective and his. And so that's something, because a lot of times it doesn't make sense because we have that male-female difference. And something that makes sense to me as a female sometimes might not be the same thing that makes sense to him, or the way he views any given topic, his perspective. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to me because I don't see it the way he does. And that's always a sort of a side effect of having male and female come together, the two becoming one. You're always going to have that variation in perspectives on some topics because he's male, she's female. And so we process and see things differently sometimes. Sometimes we're in perfect agreement. But it's when we have those differences in opinions or differences in perspective that we have to be open to hearing
what they're saying.
What our spouse is saying, even if it doesn't make sense. That's the time to become curious.
Right.
And to say, well, tell me some more about that, or help me understand where you're coming from. I'm a little confused. So I have learned to try to always put the blame on me. Instead of saying, you don't make sense or that don't make sense, I would say, okay, I'm a little bit confused. help me figure this out, help me think about this. And it just is it's totally different from responding as if something's wrong with the way he's saying it versus me saying there's something wrong with the way I'm understanding or not understanding. And so it leaves room for further conversation without disrespecting your partner.
All right.
Is that it? That's all you want to talk about for that? Yeah. So it's a short lesson. We pretty much stay within the 30-minute window that we try to. We try to keep it short and sweet and easy to digest. So we appreciate the feedback today from you guys. And hey, Miss Gloria Lawrence, Jennifer, and her mom Gloria Watts. So I just want to say hi to them. So we appreciate you all for joining in. And we'll be back next week. Same time, same place.
Yep.
Different topic.
Different topic. All right, with that said, we want to wish First Lady and our Bishop a happy anniversary again.
Yeah.
And with that said, we want to say good night from the lady and the coach. We love y'all. Bye-bye.